Okay, we're good.
Good morning, everybody, once again. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to each of you to the subcommittee about the EMS/ambulance quality of service meeting. Please remember, we are talking about the quality of service that we would like for the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County. The members of this subcommittee are Administrator Donald, 911 Director, Director Dunlap. Attorney Wayne Brown is our legal person. Fire Chief Williams. The EMS chief is not officially a member, but we're going to make sure we get that done by the commissioner. The next commission cycle, he's here as well. From a commissioner perspective, we have Commissioner Sayers, Commissioner John Clark, Commissioner Brandon Garrett, Commissioner Dennis Williams, and myself, Commissioner Ben Hassan, as the chairman. Any commissioner and the mayor can make any suggestions to this committee, and they can be heard at this committee. But you know, eventually, all of this information will go back to the full body to vote upon. Today, we're not discussing anything around subsidies. We're not talking about anything about contract negotiations. Matter of fact, today we will not even be discussing anything as much laying out an agenda for what we're going to discuss and moving forward, which is going to pertain to the quality of service that we want for the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County. Another thing I want to make sure is about the passion. We realize historically, there's been a lot of real passion expressed about the conversation around Gold Cross, about the subsidies, about the contracts, which has divided the commission, divided this government at certain points in time. My point in making this here is that on this committee, we have staff on this committee. We have the administrator, we have Director Dunlap, we have Attorney Brown weighing in, we got the fire chief weighing in, we're going to have the EMS director weighing in on this as well. And what I don't want none of our staff to get hurt in this conversation, because what they're doing is giving us their professional expertise. We as elected officials, we are politicians, we can differ very strongly about our positions, but we do not want our staff to be intimidated in informal fashion about giving us what is best for what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm pleased and hoping that we stick to that, because that's going to be very crucial and important as we do the best for the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County. So I'm going to stop it just for a moment or two. Is there any questions or any clarity about anything I've said thus far? If you can just about raise your hand and I will acknowledge it for a couple of minutes before I move forward. Great, okay. And moving forward, what I did not plan to do, but what happened here in real time to get a handle on this conversation, I received a call the other day from a young lady by the name of Miss Kristen Norman. And she was calling about her father and an incident with her father around ambulance service. And what she wanted to do was to get on the agenda and come immediately to the agenda and express her concerns. And so what I did and asked her, I said, well, listen, we're going to have a meeting this Tuesday. And I think in a real time that this would best serve us to get the commission as well as our staff in the mindset of what our real goals is and to accomplish here at the end of the day. So she forwarded a letter to myself and she forwarded a letter to the mayor as well. With that being said, excuse me, I asked Ms. Bonner, I forwarded a letter to Ms. Bonner, and I talked with Attorney Brown yesterday, and he said he didn't see a problem with it. And that was to read her letter. Somebody got that?
Yeah, I'll give you soon as I can find it.
Was to read her letter into as a matter of record. So Ms. Bonner, at this particular time, will you please read the letter, please? And anybody can get a copy of this after the meeting.
Yes, sir. Gold Cross, 1109 Medical Center Drive, Unit 4, Augusta, Georgia. Gold Cross. Yesterday, April the 3rd, 2021, I placed a call to 911 at 12:49 p.m. after my son and I arrived at my father's house after receiving a call from him. My father was crying and stating he couldn't move or breathe and needed help. I arrived at 12:35 p.m. and unable to assist him or transport him, dialed 911. My father has prostate cancer. 15 minutes later, no responders, fire trucks or ambulance had shown up. A Gold Cross ambulance went by his home. I called 911 back thinking they had the wrong address and was informed that ambulance was for another location. My 7-year-old son was upset because I was upset and his papa was in pain. I had him help papa by sitting on the porch watching for the ambulance. 30 minutes goes by and I call 911 again, only to be told that Gold Cross had to reroute the ambulance for my father to a location that required CPR on a dying person. In this time frame, South Star ambulance services had gone by back to back twice. I asked Bob, the Gold Cross supervisor I spoke with, how I could get in contact with South Star and was told that he doesn't know how to contact them. I must research that myself. I received a call from Gold Cross at 1:30ish and was informed a truck coming from downtown from a false alarm was on its way and would take a minute for them to get from downtown to my father's location at Tubman Home Road. Gold Cross finally arrived at 1:56 p.m., over an hour after my initial call. Now, I thought that when you called 911, you were calling the number for emergencies and could get help in an urgent fashion, not be given excuses why you did not yet have the help you needed. I also was under the impression, apparently falsely, that Gold Cross had more than 3 ambulances. I am upset that it took an ambulance longer to get to my father's home than it does for food delivery. If Gold Cross is going to be blasé about assisting the community they serve, perhaps they should start delivering food, where their indifference and unhurriedness will not result in someone so serious as death, but merely cold food. In the last year of our Lord 2021, I have no patience for irrelevance of lack of care when it comes to my life, my loved ones, or my community. If COVID has taught me anything, it is that life is precious, and I will not have it threatened with the nonchalantness or incompetence. Gold Cross as a company needs to do better and be better. If they can't do both and meet the needs of the community, I hear a lot of restaurants are hiring delivery drivers, might be a better fit for them. Christian Norman.
Thank you, Ms. Bonner. I want to make a comment on the last part of that, because for me, our committee here, I think, is doing something in my mind since I've been here 7 years. Several of us have. So Mick has been here longer than anybody as elected official. I think it's something we've never really focused on. How do we get a great product? It's always been about, we different about the money, or we different about the amount of ambulances. For the first time, the first leg of our conversation for quite some time, which may be 3 or 4 months, that we're going to have a conversation about putting together a quality of service package. That's what I'm asking my colleagues to be very serious about that, so that we can be better and give this community the service that it rightfully deserves and what it's paying for over the long haul. My next concern is not a concern here. I just want to make another observation is about on the agenda. On the agenda, and I take full responsibility for this. I got this information to Ms. Bonner late and rushing, so she has it laid out in the manner in which I sent it to her. And so what I want to just inform you, item 2 and 3 is not really necessary, because what that is, that ABC, that is just me putting a framework together, a start of a conversation of what I believe the ambulance service should look like. And so, so most of you all can have the same things. Okay, we need this vehicle, we need this part of this vehicle, we need this part of the vehicle. So 3 is not anything different from A, B, and C. Each one of you have an opportunity to add something to that conversation, whether you think the 911 call should be going straight to Gold Cross, a 911 calls, or this ambulance should be dispatched from our headquarters on our side of the aisle. So that's what that's about. So I will just make that clear. That's not a different conversation. And what we're doing once again today, we're just putting that agenda together of what we think initially, what it will look like. to put together a package of the quality of service. There will be a time in the future where we begin to talk about what a zone provider looks like, what a subsidy should look like, and what a contract should look like. Those conversations are coming. They're not part of our first leg of the conversation. And I'm saying that so we won't confuse the conversation. And this first leg probably gonna take us several months to resolve it. If we can do it much faster, praise God. But if we're not, be prepared for us to have this conversation for the next several months until we get to a good place. Any comments or any questions? Okay. Don't see any hands, anything? Okay. What I have here is area, this is not necessarily area of discussion as much as area that you think would help enhance the quality of service. What I have here is an EMS contract manager. What this gives us somebody, some people to give us an opportunity to oversee the contract and deal directly with the provider who happens to be Gold Cross. We can decide what that should look like, who that person, those person or that person should be in the future. But it's going to be important that we have a contract manager. Ambulance dispatch. What that means for me, that means what do we really want to, who's going to dispatch those ambulances? Many times, and I think all of us may know this, you call 911, 911 asks you certain questions. Sir, what's going on? Who's here? What are they experiencing? And then they hand you off to Gold Cross. And pretty much that same conversation starts all over again, even though eventually you get a little deeper. So we need to consider, do we need to do something different? Do we need to streamline that process? That's what that means when I said the ambulance, the dispatch, how we want to do that in the future. How do we streamline that process? Response time. That's one of the biggest things that I'm hearing. I think they call it in the industry ETA, expect time of arrival. I think that's what they call it. Many times you hear people say, well, I've called them several times and got no response. They won't tell me anything. And then the number of ambulance and locations. That's going to be very, very important. But I'm going to back up here because I got ahead of myself just a moment, my colleagues. I want to just say to you about the letter that the young lady wrote, and I apologize to the body. I hope you all ask some questions in a minute because y'all have me doing all the talking. What I did with this letter when the young lady sent the letter, when I got it, I called Director Dunlap and asked him whether there's any way that he could verify that this call was actually made and some of these things actually happened. And at this time, I'd like Director Dunlap to speak to that conversation about what he was able to find out.
Yes, sir. So there was, in fact, a 911 call placed that was received at 12:48 on Saturday, transferred to Gold Cross. Gold Cross confirmed the address of the incident and told them they would get a unit on the way. There was no questions as far as trying to find out exactly what was wrong. The caller informed Gold Cross that her father was a cancer patient and that they needed an ambulance. He was unable to move. At 1:03, so about 15 minutes later, she did call 911 again. It was received at our center, transferred it to Gold Cross, and she advised that she had seen an ambulance go by her house. They may have missed the residence, and Gold Cross dispatcher advised her no. It was going to a different call. And so she asked if there was an estimated time of arrival. Do we know when there could be an ambulance getting here? And she was told no. She called back at 1:17, asking if there was anyone on the way. And at that point, our staff had dropped off the recording, dropped off the 911 call, since there was no evident need for us. So based on the initial information that had come in, there was no request from Gold Cross to send first responders. At the same time, there was nothing from the initial call that triggered us to send first responders off the bat. So, but the information was accurate. That was in the letter. Okay,
well, thank you. And like I said, I apologize for getting ahead of myself on that, but I think that was important because many times we've heard people come down and make some, okay, I get to you, Commissioner Clark. Go ahead, Commissioner Clark, go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Dunlap, I've just got a question on the dispatch procedure. when a call is received into our 911 system that's logged in at a certain time, run us through the steps of what you do when you receive a call before you turn it over to Gold Cross, and approximately how long that is.
Sure, great question. So the very first question we're asking is 911, do you need police, fire, or ambulance? We want to determine right off the bat, is this something we're going to need to transfer? Because if they're asking for ambulance, that's a call that will be transferred. If it's a call for police or for fire, we know we're going to be entering that and getting prepared to send that call over to a dispatcher. So someone calls and they say, I need an ambulance, we will ask the address. So my address is 911 4th Street. And we'll say, okay, stay on the line while I connect you to the ambulance service. And it's a single button transfer from our 911 center that is transferred over to Gold Cross. At that point, Gold Cross will answer the transferred call, and we'll go into asking the address. They'll have to verify that a second time. Then they'll ask the phone number. And again, this is just based on what we know. So I don't want to really get into what Gold Cross actually does on their end, since I don't want to speak for them. But they're asking the address multiple times. They're asking for the phone number multiple times. And then from there, they're finding out exactly what the problem is with the patient.
Okay, and approximately how long does it take from initial answer to transfer to Gold Cross? How many seconds or minutes?
Approximately 20 seconds from the time we answer the call, receive the address, and transfer the call.
Okay, let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
Do you think moving forward that we could get a better quality of service if we utilize a 911 call station that Gold Cross operates within our 911?
Well, I can give you a couple of ideas or recommendations.
Okay.
The one
Excuse me for a minute on that one. That is a great question, Commissioner Clark. But that's what I want to put us moving forward. That's part of our next discussion, and we can put that question at the top of the list at the next meeting. Because I don't want to get into the minutia trying to solve it today, but that is a great question, and and if you don't mind, that'll be the very first question, because I think that's where we need to start at. If you don't mind, you got anything else you want to ask me other than that?
No, I'm good right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dennis Williams. Commissioner Dennis Williams, you had your hand up one time. You muted.
Sorry about that. I was concerned about the process that Gold Cross uses to change the destination of an ambulance.
Well, we could put that out as a concern, but nobody's here from Gold Cross, and it's just about us really trying to streamline our service and give them a good product. You can always keep that in mind, and that could be one of the things that as we move forward and deep into this conversation, how do you get to that point when you reroute ambulance, as you just heard?
Okay. Jumping back to the young lady's letter, was that the case with her situation?
Well, pretty much in talking to Director Dunlap, what he did to verify in terms of the timelines was absolutely correct. I don't think he could speak to whether they were rerouted or not, but he definitely said the timelines were accurate. Is that fair to say, Director Dunlap?
Thank you.
Yes, sir, that's accurate.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sias, then Commissioner Garrett. Commissioner Sias?
Okay, thank you, Chairman. I'm gonna offer you a little bit of assistance here. I know you said your intent was not to get down into all the Gold Cross issues.
I'm not gonna do it either.
Okay, so I'm trying to offer you a little bit of assistance. And I think the idea of what you're proposing here is that we as a body figure out what we want for EMS service, or figure out what it should look like. Or email, we have an expert come in and advise us what it should look like. That wasn't necessarily on your list of things, but I don't think that's a bad idea to have an outside expert also give us a couple of opinions. And I wanted to add a couple of things to your your list within the category of where you're trying to be at. You had on one of your item C was a number of ambulances and locations. And I just want to add one word to that line, and that word will be dedicated. Not just how many things, but does these ambulances, should we have ambulances dedicated only to Richmond County, not for them to run through somewhere else, not to going out to picking up a person that need to go to the dialysis center, but these are ambulances dedicated strictly to EMS calls. And also, I want to add a line CD, there'll be a line E or whatever, that any ambulances involved in our 911 services should have GPS devices on them that can be tracked for our benefit and knowledge of where these ambulances at. We don't want to find out that an ambulance, whether it's our ambulance or a contractor's ambulance, if we are paying them, then those ambulances should be where we have subsidized them to be. I don't want to get into that in a minute, but I'm saying is, at the elephant in the room is going to always be the subsidy piece. So when we are paying for things, then it should definitely be where we know where they're at. We know where our stuff at. I believe we know where our own ambulances are, and we know where our first responder vehicles are. So if we have EMS ambulances, and that's emergency medical services, we should know where they're at. And one other item I want to add to that is anybody involved in this that receive financial incentives, that should be an open records process, not necessarily everything about that person's or company's business, but we should have the right to inspect things related to what we help finance. Not saying what they do on the other side with any other ambulance as a contractor or provider. We're talking about the EMS piece. And lastly, which will be maybe a conversation down the road a little bit, what are the financial resources that our citizens use or have available to pay for EMS services? We know EMS services along with medical services are expensive. And to make a long story short,
Commissioner, I'm on.
I was about to finish.
Yeah, but I really don't want you to get into the subsidies. That's where we go off the grid. We're gonna have that conversation.
Commissioner,
We are really hold, Commissioner, please. We're gonna have that conversation. I only want to talk. We only want to just lay a foundation just for the quality of service right now. We're gonna have a conversation about all those aspects of this.
But I wasn't going down that road.
Well, you mentioned it quite
what I was about to say is, as you try to establish an ambulance service or what it should look like, you should always be aware. You should always have in mind how do the customers pay for it. That was the point I was making.
Okay, well, thank you, sir. I misunderstood you then. All right.
Okay,
thank you. But your other opinion,
before you cut me off, I like to say I'm finished, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to tag along with Commissioner Sias's comments because I can actually agree that we need to have a dedicated amount of ambulances in the county at any given time. And moving forward, I believe that the comment he asked about the GPSs, and I'm going to ask Director Dunlap this question: is there not already a computer system installed in our 911 center that has the ability to track the ambulance?
Yeah.
No, sir. The equipment that was previously furnished from Gold Cross at the sunset of the contract in January of 2017, access was terminated, allowing us to view that, and that equipment is no longer set up.
I know that to be a false statement because I've taken that tour, and I was also told how your people were given training on how to use that system, and it was never utilized. So I'm not sure where the miscommunication is there, but is the system still there? That was the question. I wasn't asking if you're using it or if you have access to it. I'm just asking if it's still there.
It is not.
Let me kind of, Commissioner Garrett, I think there might have been a miscommunication here, because let me try to rephrase that, because I want to kind of That's the thing about staff here. He did say that it's available, but at the sunset time of 2017, they stopped utilizing it. So he's saying it is available. He know it exists, but at that time when the sunset of the contract, that's when it went away. So I want to clear that, and then you can go. Y'all can proceed on the conversation. Go ahead. But I do want to clear.
Maybe it'll just help if
it
there
does
was a
exist.
screenshot of it somewhere to help remind him. I'm done.
Well, but I just want to clarify. I mean, this is in the 911. We're talking about equipment that's in the 911 center that my staff would have access to, that we would have access to. In January of 2017, there was no longer access provided to the 911 center for us to view. And it wasn't even providing the location of the ambulances. It was a small screen that just gave status of overall ambulances that were handling 911 calls, that were handling non-emergency transfers. You know, I came here in December of 2016 and saw that thing work for about 2 weeks, and it has not functioned since.
Would you be opposed to having a system like that to where you would all know where the ambulances are?
I'd be all for that, Commissioner.
All right, good deal.
Certainly.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Now, I needed some more list of things here that you think will help us streamline this service.
If we can get them in.
I just don't. I'm gonna be protecting of the staff a little bit now. So if y'all can call them out if I get a little off thing, because I do want them. They're our experts, and we want them to speak freely because there's no political gain for them. And sometimes they're gonna say things that I'm gonna disagree with, and sometimes say things that some of you are gonna disagree with. But we will almost respect because they are not political animals in many ways as we are. And I don't mean to insult us in saying that, but I want to protect them and let them feel free to express themselves freely. And I'm gonna try to protect them.
I got a question for the fire chief.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Chief Williams. How are you, sir?
Good morning, sir.
All right, just a quick update. With our fire apparatuses, our fire ambulances and everything, do all those vehicles have GPS tracking? So somewhere between you all and the main folks in 911 center, can y'all tell where those apparatuses and ambulances are at any time?
We have a system that was installed on our units that we paid for called M-Track. And what that M-Track system does, it changes the signal lights at certain intersections. It gives our fire trucks and our ambulances a green light to go through certain intersections. That we can track our units with that system. I'm not sure if 911 had that availability, but the traffic engineering can track our units. And also through risk management, I get pings on certain vehicles if they're speeding or, you know, if they're idling too long. So we do have the ability to track our units. We do have our emergency units, not all our units, just the emergency units. Yes, sir.
And is that, I'm trying to think of that term, the MDT, is that the right word?
MDT, that's the unit in the fire truck that the firefighters use to respond, get updates on fire calls. Yes, sir.
And that's basically a portable computer system, right?
Yes, sir.
And can those vehicles and things be tracked through that device?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was what I was thinking.
Yes, sir.
And Commissioner, one more question. Mr. Dunlap, can you all at 911 tap into those tracking those devices like the MDT to see where they are at?
Yes, sir. We're able to see those available fire units and their status, and as well as the law enforcement sheriff's office units.
So if in tracking and reviewing and knowing what dedicated vehicles are, whether it's EMS or fire vehicle or fire ambulance, then if there's an MDT in that vehicle, then the whole idea of where it is can easily be resolved. I would think it would be. Would you agree with that?
I would agree for units that have MDTs that are on the, that have access to the equipment and software that is used by the city. You know, so
Okay,
the MDTs have the computer-aided dispatch software that I mean, Chief Williams can have units go to calls and never even have to talk to a dispatcher on the radio. They can get in the truck, they can click en route from a button on the MDT, they can click on scene from a button on the MDT, and they can clear themselves. So that capability is there.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Would anybody like to add anything else to this list before we put some structure to what we believe?
Mr. Hassan.
Yes, sir.
This is Bobby Williams, all the way from Miami, Florida. How you doing?
From Miami, Florida. Are you legal to get in on this meeting?
Look here, I'm just calling in. I just want to throw something out.
Go ahead.
I'm thinking that in order to make informed decisions that we need data. You know, how many people they pick up, who has insurance, who doesn't have insurance. You talked about, you know, where they are, when they are, where they are. But I just think we need to look at the data to be able to make decisions. I think we need to be able to look at the average billing, what they bill people who have insurance, what people are billed if they don't have insurance, because the reason why we pay the subsidy is so that, you know, the billing won't be so high. So I think we need to look at a list of data that we want to, you know, put in and look at when we get ready to make a decision about subsidy.
Well, let me, Commissioner, I don't disagree with you, but I think you're just not getting on. The conversation today is really about putting together what we think a good system, a good service will look like. Eventually, we're going to get to the substance, we're going to get to the ways that you're going to be able to finance. We're going to have those conversations. We're going to get to what that should look like based on what you just mentioned. Eventually,
Right.
we're going to who's going to be the contract manager. Eventually, we're going to get to how the contract is going to be negotiated with Gold Coast, who's going to represent us. We're going to get to all of that, but I want to kind of separate it, and that way we don't get bogged down and lose sight of what we always tend to have a tendency to lose sight of, and that is the quality of service. I think the quality of service is one thing, and then as we want to say, well, what are we willing to subsidize them? When those conversations start. But even before we do that, I'm gonna go back to having a conversation, a presentation, probably from the administrator as well as the attorney in the future, is to tell us exactly what is the responsibility of a zone provider, and then we begin to talk about subsidy from there. So that is the conversation going to happen, but it's not going to happen in the very near future. I'm going to go to Commissioner Dennis Williams, then I'm going to come back to Commissioner.
Can I make one other comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bobby Williams. I'm sorry.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I don't want us to skip over the data because the data doesn't lie. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Enjoy yourself in Florida.
Well, I can. I'm on a meeting.
Commissioner Dennis Williams first.
And you
Right.
have the fire
Just-
chief with his hand up too.
Yeah, I said he next. Commissioner Williams next. I mean, Chief
Just to
Williams.
go along with my colleague about the data, the data would help determine the quality of care that we have, because the data will give you a variety of issues. Well, will address a variety of issues, such as this complaint from a customer, and having a process to address that complaint and determine the outcome of that complaint. Also, the breaking down of calls and how many calls are changed from a high status to a lower status and things like that. So data is an important element of making sure that we're able to get and set a standard for quality of care. And I got a few more, but that's the zest of it.
Okay. Chief Williams?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioner. I think that myself and Chief Rockwell and Mr. Dunlap will agree with seeing every day, coming to work every day, and listening to the radio and talking to our folks that the folks that go out, first responders, and not getting into the actual contract, but the two most important components of our quality of service. The two most important components are going to be the number of units that they provide, that they actually really provide, and the level of the responders on those units. That's how you get your quality of care, is that those folks having the units to respond, and then you have the right folks on the units to take care of the patient need that is there. And with that, and to be honest with you, I believe Gold Cross can provide that, but our contract has to specifically state that, and we have to have a good manager to hold them accountable to the contract. If we can get those three things together, then I think that we'll get the quality of service from them that we're looking for.
Well, thank you, thank you. I'm gonna, Chief Williams, at our next meeting, part of that, you mentioned talking about the level of responders, and what that tells me, you're talking about the staffing of the ambulances themselves. That's
Yes,
gonna be part of the conversation that's possibly gonna have at the next meeting to give us an idea what in your mind, what should that look like?
Okay, all right.
Okay. Are there any more suggestions that we could, Ms. Bonner, I need to ask you a question. I'm gonna come to you, Commissioner Garrett. You muted, Ms. Bonner.
Got it, sir.
Ms. Bonner, do you have all these ways to skin this cat that we talking about? The level of service that we're commissioners mentioned about potentially, we didn't necessarily adopt that, but we want to, not omit it. Expert opinion, dedicated ambulance, I think except for Commissioner Garrett, because we talked about ambulance and locations, and he added the word dedication to that, dedicated to that. We had a couple more things, the number of units, which we already was talking about that, the level of responders. So I'm just asking, do you have all of that?
Yes, sir.
You do? Okay. Commissioner Garrett.
I got a couple more to add to the list that we're making for Ms. Bonner.
Please.
I think something else that we need to look at is the location or the staging of the ambulances. At one point back in the day, the ambulances were allowed to be housed or to at least be stationed at some of our fire stations. Ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know if that would be number C on the list, number of ambulances and location. That's on there to be discussed. Dedicated, well,
I
Commissioner
think he's
Sykes,
elaborating about it, saying the same thing.
yeah, dedicated to only Richmond County EMS. So that's item number C under things to be discussed. Is that similar to what you were wanting, Commissioner Garrett?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Anything else, Garrett? Go ahead.
Yes, but going back to the whole tracking of the ambulances thing, which I think we need to do, back when we discussed the current MOU that's currently in place that we're operating under, I remember Gold Cross offering to put one of their dispatchers in our 911 center, and that was declined. Do we know why that was declined, and would that be something that we would look at again this time?
Well, that'll be, we're gonna probably discuss, that goes back to Commissioner Clark's question as well. We can discuss that at the next meeting, and let Director Dunlap and the administrator speak to that. What do they suggest? Although we make the final decisions, but we can see what that looks like, because I think that's gonna be our first order of business per Commissioner Clark's question early on in this process.
Gotcha.
Anyway, okay, Commissioner Sayers.
I just want to go back to a couple of things you're talking about adding to the list. I didn't hear you mention to Ms. Bonner about the GPS. And I didn't hear you mention to her about open records.
I didn't understand that, Commissioner. Go back to that for a minute and tell me what's your rationale on that.
Not so much a rationale, it's just that when you talk about contract management, a contract manager can't inspect anything or check anything if he or she or whoever, or even the commission can't get access to the records. I explained that to say not their other business ventures or things, but concerning the EMS piece. We need to be able to look at that. I mean, we're talking about at the end of the day, we're gonna get to this idea about a subsidy, and that is public money to a private company for a public service. So the bottom line is we have to be able to, some entity of us has to be able to go in and look at those things. The same as when we talk about the number 911 calls. I want to suggest that our 911 director pull at least the last 36 months or 3 years of 911 calls for us to analyze as we go through this process. So the bottom line is you have nothing if you can't go back and inspect any records. So that has to be a piece of this, Commissioner.
I didn't deny that. I was saying about the early part of your conversation. I just didn't want all to get bungled up, and then we start debating those points and we lose sight of that. We're trying to get a quality service And in my mind, that's what has hurt us historically. I think we might have started out conversations similar to this, and then we end up with an agreement. And then a week later, we end up saying, man, we ain't got no oversight. We ain't got no way of knowing anything. And that's what I don't want to happen. I don't disagree with that. I'm trying to get it in a timely fashion so we don't omit those things moving forward. I don't disagree.
I'm just putting it out there to be part of the conversation in these lists of things to discuss, Commissioner. Bottom line.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Hassan,
Yes, sir.
I don't think we need to put together data right now, but I think we kind of need to put our heads together, maybe the administrator, maybe Mr. Dunlap, maybe the chief of the fire chief, the types of data that we will want to look at, just list the types of data that we would want to look at. I don't think we want to, at this point in time, put the data together, just look at the types of data that we may want. So that may be good.
Mayor Pro Tem, you and I may differ on that.
Excuse me, Commissioner. I don't disagree. Just remember, I'm not disagreeing with it. I'm just trying to keep it from going down the same rabbit hole we've done historically. All these issues that came up, and at the end, we end up signing off or agreeing to a product that we're dissatisfied with. That's what I'm adamant about, and that's what I've seen happen before. I don't disagree. I would tell you, one of my sayings is detail matters, and this thing, data matters. I don't disagree with that. I really don't. Go ahead, Commissioner Sayers.
Oh no, I'm done. My suggestion still stands. I have we talk about data and then we say we don't need data. So if we gonna talk about data, then somewhere you got to start collecting the data.
I don't think you heard us don't need data, Commissioner.
Say again?
I don't think you heard nobody say that.
Well, obviously you and I were missing the same meeting here. Yeah. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
All right.
Commissioner Dennis Williams, I think, had his hand up.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Williams, go ahead.
He's muted. You're muted, Commissioner.
He's doing sign language. You don't have to talk. He got his thing
up. Commissioner
no
Dennis
comment.
Williams. Okay.
No comment. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Administrator, you got anything you want to weigh in on this?
He's muted.
You're muted, sir.
Not at this time. I thought about a comment earlier, but I think you guys ended up covering it.
Okay. Mr. Rockwell, welcome to the meeting. I'm gonna go back to the commission at the next commission meeting, and make you official part of the committee. This is a committee that was put together, that was authorized by the commission. And so I would have to go back, but you still are welcome to make any comments that you may have today.
Thank you, Chairman. I have no comment right now.
All right. Ms. McClain, which one is it, ma'am? I'm sorry.
It's McClain, sir.
Any comments?
No, sir. No comments at the time.
All right. Commissioner McKnight, any comments?
No, sir, not at this time.
Okay. Ms. Bonner.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the meeting, will you send that out, when you get a chance, I don't mind us at the end of the meeting, but we send out all of those talking points that we pretty much agreed to, include data and everything in that. And from that, we're going to send it out, and we're going to send it across to the committee and allow them to discern where we're going to start at the next meeting. We'll take a vote and we'll do that. But one thing for sure, I think, I promised Commissioner Clark, we will address his issue first and foremost, which was, and I'm paraphrasing this, Commissioner Clark, if I get it wrong, please feel free to correct me. And that is, he wanted to know, does he think that Gold Cross operating out of 911 or what have you, is there's a better way, a better mousetrap can make it happen? Commissioner Clark, go ahead and state your question. That would be accurate the way you want it.
That was close enough. Do we think we'd get a quality with a 911 dispatcher from Gold Cross in the 911 center?
Okay. So Director Dunlap, be prepared to speak to that first and foremost at our very next meeting before we take on anything else. I think Commissioner Garrett is interested in that as well. If you've heard, there's some rumors around that as well.
Certainly, my thoughts will be kind of a multifold to address that, as well as some other suggestions on how we can handle that better.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. With that said, to my colleagues, I'm about to wrap it up. You got any closing commentary? Ms. Bonner will be sending that out to us, and we can look at it and we can analyze. We already know Commissioner Clark's question is number one, and we can decide where we want to start next within trying to create a quality of service. A quality of service. That's what our intentions are. Yes, sir, Commissioner Garrett.
Hey, before we adjourn, can we go ahead and schedule the next meeting?
What you want to do in 3 weeks?
You don't think that's too long?
I'm just asking. I threw that out there. 2 weeks?
2 weeks sounds good.
2 weeks? You got a calendar, Ms. Bonner. You keep counting us better than most of us.
Well, let me just say this, if we're gonna meet in 2 weeks on Tuesdays, that's usually our commission and committee day, so we would need to take another day out of the week.
April
22nd of April.
22nd of April. 22nd. Is that what you said, well, Commissioner?
Yeah, I said the 22nd of April.
22nd, that's what I was going to, yeah. We want to say, Commissioner, we agree on that.
Sounds good.
I think I'm getting my
11
hair
o'clock?
done that day.
Is 11 o'clock a good time?
Sounds good.
That's fine.
Dunlap, go ahead.
I just had one last thing. Just because I was the only one that got called out. Commissioner Garrett, we're good?
No, you fine.
Commissioner Hassan says we're good, so we're good.
All right.
Commissioner, thank you all and to the staff. We appreciate you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules. This is a very serious issue. I think everything that's said today have validity to it. My real goal and objective, my little pushback is, like I said, I want to make sure we do all the things in as organized fashion as possible. I don't dismiss the experiences and what other people know about this process. I just want to make sure we don't miss the big picture this time, and that is a quality of service that the Gulfstream County citizens can be proud of, and we'll be proud of weighing in on it at the end of the day. And that's all I want out of this. I think that's what everybody else want out of it. And so we're going to have to keep it in the road at the same time so we can get to the same place at the same time. Thank you all very much for your time. And we see you again on the 22nd at 11 a.m.